Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
All working?
No, it's not activating on YouTube. It's just it says connect streaming software to go. Garbage. So I'm just going to reactivate everything again. YouTube. Notifications. Go to the YouTube Studio, I guess. YouTube Studio, create. We may catch up onto it as we go through, but anyways, this is as much for me just to have a chat with you as anything else, and go that route. People can view it obviously afterwards when it gets archived. So we can start if you don't mind.
Yeah, go.
Okay, so I'm familiar with the flat Earth concepts, and I've been seeing the community online and such, and the talking, and I think to me the one thing that interests me about anything is how somebody, got to where they got to, and the things that, let's say, they look at and they monitor, and that's somewhat what I'm going to do with you. So I guess with that in line, or that definition, my first question to you would really be, what led you to the flat Earth concepts or ideas? Was it something that you came about your own feelings in that, or was it something that you were led to by other things that you were following or heard of? Maybe you can just go into that. Basically, me, it's just kind of like how did it all start?
Sure. So I think it's something that I realised subconsciously while I was travelling around as a rep for an electronics company, and I just suppressed it. And then one day I heard a guy called Math Powerland use the words flat Earth, but not in disdain and ridicule, and it just set off a spark. At the time, it was probably 2 or 3 in the morning, and I went and woke up my wife and told her Earth's flat.
Okay. So it was just almost like an awareness, I guess, but something that you actually had in the back of your mind as something that was there, but not something concrete. But as you said, it was almost tripped by, I guess, communication or comments you've heard by other people.
Yeah, so when I was travelling around, I was acutely aware that I wasn't high enough to see the curve of the Earth, but I wanted to be. So I was essentially saying to myself, look how flat it is. But I wasn't. I was saying I wish I could go higher to see curve. So when, I say, you hear somebody not ridiculing it, it sets off a chain reaction of thoughts and feelings that I'd had already.
Okay. I was kind of wondering after that. First question was actually if there was actually driving forces from other aspects, and I was kind of like saying, is it friends, family that maybe you were correlated to, or you had been influenced. But it sounds like from your comment before, this is actually something that was not so much driven by anybody that you were familiar with or known explicitly in your own family unit, or your people that you're familiar with, but things that you were just wondering about, and just basically came upon it by your own questions that you had.
Yeah, like I say, I heard the term mentioned and it immediately set a spark off. I was just like, wow, the Earth is flat. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've experienced it. I've questioned it, but I've questioned it with the globe programming in mind. And all that all flashed before me in a matter of a few seconds.
Okay. But again, it wasn't something that, let's say, you were led by. It wasn't like, say, your father or your mother was a person
no.
who talked about stuff like that. It was
no.
really something that was really, things that you were pondering yourself personally.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like I say, I heard somebody say it, and it immediately triggered a load of thoughts and experiences that I'd already had.
Okay, so it's kind of like an alignment, like you were thinking maybe things along the same lines, and then you saw other people were talking about similar ideas and that, and it kind of like almost made an attachment and say, hey, they're talking about the same things that I'm thinking of.
Just 2 words, just the words flat Earth, as I say, uttered by Math Powerland, but not with disdain and ridicule attached.
Okay. 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 When I read about flat Earth with respect to like history and that, I found that in the documentation there was actually a lot of aspects with respect to religious-based, mandates or arenas, I guess, that seem to be a focus on the flat Earth itself. And I was kind of wondering, is that something also that maybe drove you down the path of following the flat Earth concept, or is it something completely on the side to you that you don't really actually monitor any kind of religious, observances that also detail out the concept of a flat Earth?
The latter. So no.
No, okay. It's interesting because I was wondering about that as I saw more and more things and I saw people talking about it. And I actually saw some live debates online where people talked about it. And it seemed like three-quarters of the people who obviously were the flat Earth proponents had a very, very, very religious-based, basis on their beliefs. And I was wondering if that actually is a very concrete aspect of the flat Earth community, and that it really is something driven from that particular point of view, or is it something that comes from different ponderings or questions and that. And so, for me, just the stuff that I saw, it gave me the feeling that it was something that was driven by a religious perspective, but I wasn't sure how deep that was. And I guess for you, you're saying that religion had nothing to do with respect to your beliefs and following the flat Earth concepts.
Now, I recognise there's plenty of people out there who will look at the Bible or various other religious documents and take either inspiration or seek evidence. But that's not me personally, and the people who I interact with. While some of them are or would be considered by outsiders to be religious, they wouldn't declare themselves as religious. But they will quote scripture and, they'll draw parallels with it. I personally do not.
Okay. To me, that's actually quite interesting because to me, I find that I can see how religion could be a very, strong proponent, not say that it's proponent per se, but proponent in the concept of the way somebody may decide to follow a topic based on a very strong feeling they have that originated from a religious background, and that I say myself, I guess I can see actually how they evolved, into that concept, saying, there's some beliefs they had that are very, very strong in the way they look at life and the way they feel, things occur and such, and the actual biblical or religious-based, meaning behind things gave them more validity and comfort level in following a concept that is not somewhat standard, and then moving them forward and along that lines. A thing that I find extremely interesting, though, besides that aspect of always religion, where I can actually see the path to some extent, the fact that people who actually don't follow, let's say, religion in a very concrete fashion, but they still came to the same, beliefs, that are being asked about. To me, that's very interesting because, my background obviously is not in that realm. The reason why I'm having these kind of discussions is I like to know why people believe what they believe, and actually not so much, to say, hey, they're wrong or they're right, but to actually understand is what led them down the path to actually, feel that that's something that is concrete enough for them to be, very, very strong in the way that they believe the correlated aspects to the general topic is related to. And, I'm almost thinking, like it's to me complicated to understand why somebody who, again, does not follow religion has a strong feeling towards that. And while I did have a last question, it actually is basically a duplicate of my previous comments. But as I'm talking here, I guess, maybe that aspect of what I just stated, maybe a corollary to the questions I asked before, which may be somewhat repetitive, but again, it's more along the lines of me just questioning because I want to understand as best I can, and it comes down to the aspect, an explicit path or explicit, event, something, that makes you feel that this is a very, very strong, belief from your perspective that has an extensive amount of validity, that, concretely makes you want to believe in it much more so than, let's say, other people would so. And the common question is, again, it may be just a repetitive question is, how did you get to where you got to? Like, did it start off, you said it basically, it was almost like a point in time where just somebody said flat earth and you said that just tripped things. And I'm kind of wondering, the whole aspect of going down that path, was it solely just the aspect that someone stated a term or a phrase that triggered something, for you? Or, would you feel that there actually is a much more broader, let's say more can't think of the words I want to use, but that aspect of showing a progression that's very, very flat, kind of like saying I've been going, and after a period of time, all of a sudden, like where I started from is very different from where I ended up, and that's how I got to this point. And I'm wondering if you feel that that's something that happened to you, or do you absolutely feel it was just almost an epiphany kind of aspect, just because somebody made a statement and you said, hey, that sounds like that aligns with the way I'm thinking.
Well, I'd just be repeating myself if I said it's Math Powerland saying the words flat Earth and then me appreciating all the things I'd experienced already. But I see it as the antithesis of what you're asking me. You're asking me about a religious belief, and I don't have one. In fact, I feel quite the contrary. The people I encounter have the religious belief. So the people who believe that they are flying through a sky vacuum in violation of natural law, and they have people antipodal to them hanging off the bottom of a sphere-shaped object which has absolutely no validity. Most people are unaware that they are part of a religious belief. I can juxtapose it really easily too. If I describe to your audience members people who are a part of Scientology, they would ultimately realise that Scientology is a religious faith, and they'd see it as fairly kooky, this idea, not realising, of course, that the idea of Scientology is rooted in heliocentric religion. So their belief is the same as most people in the Western world's belief. It's just one step removed. So this idea that we are sun-centric, travelling around a light that obviously traverses over our heads, the idea that we are moving around it is a philosophy. It's called a model. It's taught to you as a model. It's the heliocentric model. Well, this worship of this sun-centric system is a religious belief that most people hold and are completely unaware. Maybe yourself, I don't know. You said you weren't religious, so I assume you're not a globe-believing religious fundamentalist.
Yes, I'm very, typical of the people you probably meet in general. I would say I'm part of the general population. And the aspect is, I don't follow any explicit, non-standard, beliefs. I do interpret and understand the concepts and where they came from. My background is engineering and computer science, so it's extremely technical, but in those realms, it's also very scientific because of the activity you have to go through in those particular disciplines are very scientific in nature. So I do think in those terms a lot of times, and I do evaluate things based on the way I understand the perception of evaluation occurs. But with respect to that, probably questions, or maybe my next question may be more along the lines of something that you may not want to answer, because again, I did say that this was a question of wondering how you got to where you got to, but it also goes in the aspects of maybe some things that may be a little bit more, maybe a bit more of a concern with respect to communication-wise, and I don't want to offend you, so if it does come across as offensive, just say, hey, I'm not going to answer that question, and I have no problem with that. But my question is, after that is, okay, I understand, for yourself, it was something almost like an epiphany or something that just almost clicked. And on top of that, I'm kind of wondering, do you feel that the typical explanations that you've heard are just so incorrect that you needed to have a explanation that aligns to something that you felt was more concrete? Or was it something came along, that you sat there and say, hey, I just can't understand how this was, concluded as being correct, and we need another way of looking at this?
Well, you tell me. I mean, you said that something scientific that you had looked into that gives you your current outlook, that you are presumably on a spinning ball flying through a sky vacuum. I mean, if you can tell me what science there is, I'll make a statement first. There is absolutely no scientific evidence whatsoever to prove you're on a spinning water ball flying through a vacuum. The heliocentric model is merely a philosophy. But if you can offer me what you think is science, I'm more than happy to tell you how it isn't.
Well, to me, the aspects of physics, and its explanations and its theories and its models and such that explain things, I find a lot of validity in them because they seem to be, in the aspects of the conclusions you come from them, seem to be concrete and accurate. And I don't just say that because someone said that to me, because I went to school just like everybody went to school, and I had to do experiments and classes and stuff like that because that was part of the activity we had to do. And so I went through that, and those things,
What are those things? What things?
Excuse me?
What things? You're kind of vaguely telling me about your school experience. Just tell me one of the things specifically.
The aspects of, let's say, one thing that stands out to me is the aspects of determining how far a ball will go if it's shot, let's say, from a cannon, and going to the aspects of determining how far it will go based on the equations that have been developed for the actual explanation of a ball flying through the air. So stuff like that.
That would be maths, not science.
Well, I would say that science has an extensive, correlation to mathematics, because mathematics is used to explain a lot of the explanations of where the sciences come from.
That's fascinating. You'd be wrong.
Are you disagree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. You are wrong. Maths is maths. It's working in the abstractions of mathematics. It's language. It's descriptions. Science establishes cause and effect. So science and maths are very different things. Calculating things is maths. It's abstract. Science, physics deals with the physical. Physical, not maths. Different things.
But you don't believe any of the equations that you see described in physics.
You said you had experiments.
It's an actual mathematical.
You told me about
equation.
Science. Well, why are you now telling me about what I don't accept in maths when it's abstract? It's not real. It's not physical. It's not real. So I don't care about maths. You said you had science, though. You said you had some experiments, but can you tell me one? I've made a declaration there isn't any.
I'm just going by in the aspects of, let's say, what I was taught and what I was learned,
which is
as I gone through school and stuff like that. As
what's that?
What I perceived as, let's say, science, mathematics.
You said, what is it though, specifically? Not what you've done at school. Just tell me specifically. You've said maths and stuff so far. What scientific evidence? That would be physics in the physical. So physics deals with the real world, the physical and natural world. So if you can offer me something that suggests...
I understand what you're saying there, but what I'm saying is that with respect to what I learned, there was an extensive amount of mathematics that was involved. And so that's where I'm getting lost, because you're saying that they're two completely different things.
Maths and science,
from my
perspective,
things. They're actually very correlated. So
no, they're not.
For me, I kind of said,
no, they're not.
I can't
You're just wrong.
Why...
You're just wrong.
Hey?
They have different titles for a reason. Maths is maths. It's abstract. It's language. It's descriptions. Physics deals with physics. It's physical. They're very different. One is abstract, not real, abstract maths. The other deals with the physical and natural world. Cause and effect reasoning based on experiments. Now, you've used the word experiments, then gone on to tell me all about the maths. You've reified. When people take things from the abstract, that's maths, and put them in the real, that has a term. It's called reification. It's where you misplace the concrete nature of something which has no concrete nature. That's abstractions and maths. But if you have some experiments, I've already declared factually accurately that there are none to prove this abstraction of a model. Not physical, not real, merely your religious belief in mathematical abstractions, not science, not physics.
Okay, so we'll go with respect to those statements you're making, and you just feel that the two things are technically different concepts or different topics.
No, they are.
That there actually is, they actually have no correlation. That you can't sit there and say, I can use mathematics as a basis for, let's say, the science that I'm talking about, because there's no way for the mathematics to validate the science because they're two different things.
You seem to be completely ignoring me. So they are different things. They've got different titles. And I've explained this is the third time. One is abstract. That's maths. One deals with the physical. That's physics. Now, physics is the study of the physical and natural world. And that is dealt with by science, experiments, hypotheses, cause and effect reasoning. Nothing to do with maths. So it seems, I'm not being rude, but before you interrupt me, but it seems you don't know what science is, but you thought your religion, based on reification of mathematics, was based on science. It isn't.
Okay. I have to admit that to me I find very confusing, and my question really relates to the aspects of determining actually how you got to where you got to, and I'm kind of wondering is, did you always think that the aspects of mathematics and the aspects of science were two completely different topics, and that there was really no correlation between them? Or is this something you actually evolved into from, let's say, things you've said, things you've read and things you've talked about with people that made you came to this conclusion? I know you said the aspect of coming to the flat Earth, realization was something almost an epiphany. But I'm kind of wondering, was this aspects of saying, there's no proof for it because you can't use, a topic that everybody utilizes for the description as a basis because you don't feel that they can be used. And I'm kind of wondering, how did you come to that conclusion? If it was a conclusion you came to, or if it was just something you always felt?
I've proven it to you right here and right now, though, haven't I? You haven't offered me any science. You've not offered me an experiment. You've told me that I should reify mathematics, which is abstract. It took me 3 attempts to explain that to you. While I do talk, you talk through me, even though you waffle on for about 10 straight minutes with a question that never comes. I've been about 30 seconds into this statement, and you're already interrupting me. So you're obviously keen to talk. I understand. You have a religious belief, and you have reified mathematics into the physical world. That's what you have done. You're asking me about my belief in the obvious and observable flat nature of our world, which they teach to school kids. They tell them how flat and obviously and observably flat it is. They also tell them about the model and how it was invented, and how you should reify it into physical existence. That's what you're taught. Now you've told me all about what you taught. You thought you had science. You don't. Science deals with the physical world. And there isn't any to prove you're on a spinning ball flying through a sky vacuum with people antipodal hanging off the bottom of the ball. All of that stuff's nonsense. There's no scientific evidence for any of this stuff. So I don't have any beliefs. You're asking me continually about how I have come to this belief, and I don't have one, while simultaneously ignoring and interrupting me while I point out that you have a belief. You have a belief that you're on a spinning water ball flying through a vacuum in violation of natural law. You don't have any science to back that. That's your religious belief that you hold, and I don't. Not the other way around.
Okay. I apologize if I was interrupting you. I really didn't mean to do that, so I didn't mean to interrupt you as you were speaking. If I did do that, again, I apologize. Maybe the aspect of where you said that I was taught, I'm going to assume you actually went through the educational system too, and I'm going to assume that you were taught these same things, or at least you were exposed to these same things, and I'm kind of wondering, did you have a issue or a problem with these things that you were taught, or was it something that you came to some point to where you said to say, this stuff doesn't sound correct, but I did go through the process of actually going through the educational system that taught me it, or that exposed it to me?
What's incorrect now? Sorry, I haven't. What have I said is incorrect other than your assertion that maths is science? I haven't said anything's incorrect about my teachings at my school that I went to.
No, I'm not saying they're incorrect or not correct. What I'm saying is, I'm going to assume you went through the standard education system in the country that you're in, and I'm going to assume that they taught you the concepts of, the Earth and that, and it's a globe and all that kind of stuff. And I was just kind of wondering, as you were going through that process of learning, did you feel at that time that this was something that was incorrect, or was it something that you evolved into becoming more aware of as you went through, say, your life, and you, let's say, went through school, you got out of school, and you said, hey, there's something wrong here?
Okay. No, they taught you the same as they taught me, which was that it's a model, the heliocentric model, sun-centric model. Well, we don't live on models. The real world's real and is dealt with reality, as opposed to philosophy and models. So when they told me it was a model, maybe I didn't appreciate, because I watched a lot of movies, that we don't actually live on a model. I might not have appreciated that at the time, but what they taught me was still strictly accurate. It's a model. The heliocentric model's just a philosophy. So was that inaccurate? No. They also taught me in 5th grade what science was. Cause and effect reasoning based on a hypothesis, independent and dependent variables. We were all taught that in 5th grade too. So it surprises me, given that you've harked on about education so much, why you would misunderstand what the difference between maths and science is, because we were all taught the same thing in 5th grade about what science was.
Yeah, maybe my interpretation is just different from yours, I guess.
It's wrong. You're just wrong. You think maths is science. Yours is incorrect. I tried to correct you 3 times, but you're just incorrect. You're incorrect. You are incorrect, unfortunately. You think that you've got proof for a sphere from maths, and you told me it was experiments in science. You were just wrong. It's okay.
Yeah, no, I understand the fact that you believe I'm wrong, and I give you that. I give you
it's not my belief.
I give you that.
Very rude. It's not my
freedom
belief.
to believe, in the aspects of that. So I'm not going to argue with it. That's what you believe. That's what you believe. So
no, it's not.
I'm not.
It's not a belief. I'll try again. Let me try once more. It is not my belief that you are wrong. You are in fact wrong. Maths is maths and is abstract. Science, physics is physical, and they are not the same thing. You are just misunderstanding. I'm trying to ask you, shockingly, why you think this, and now declare that it's my belief in you being wrong. It's not my belief. You are incorrect. You don't have to like that, but it's a fact. Maths is maths. Science is science. You were taught this in 5th grade. We all were. You've just misunderstood because you've reified a model that's taught with maths. But you thought it was physical. Yeah. You thought you were on a globe, and you were wrong. And you're very triggered and want to talk through me while I say this, even though you've apologised for interrupting me already. Yeah. I understand. Yeah. I deal with people like this all the time that have a religious belief and want to interrupt me while I'm pointing that out to them because they don't like the fact that it's being highlighted that I, in fact, do not have a religious belief as much as you want to spend hours with long, drawn-out questions about me and my belief. I don't have one. You, on the other hand, have a belief about a ball that flies through a vacuum. Based on maths, not physics, not experiments, not science. I nearly got to the end, didn't I, without 4 interruptions. But thank you. It's a really fun interview so far.
Yeah. If I'm phrasing things a certain way that maybe is not, making you feel that I'm speaking concretely, I apologize for that also. I'm trying not to be too vague or too inconsistent. My questions really dealt with the aspects of just trying to understand where you came from and how you got to where you got to. And this is kind of like the reason for this last set of questions, and I understand that,
Okay, I understand.
You look at things a certain way, and you have it.
A certain part of my education was a private education, so I was fortunate enough to have a very good education. Maybe in 5th grade, when they focused on the scientific method, I was paying more attention, or they took more care to make sure I understood. But ultimately, I do understand what I'm talking about when I say you're wrong. You are, and you want to dance around that. It's just offensive to me that you can't just concede that you're incorrect about this. Amusing also, but there we go.
Well, again, my wish is really understand, your perspective, and that's really what I want to do. Not so much, try to, convince you of anything. I don't want to try to convince you of anything. I just want to ask questions and hear your point of view. but I do find the aspect that you said that you went through the education system, you learned all these things, and you did explain the aspect that you define these aspects of modeling or models, and that they're, I guess, what you feel as not correct. And to me, that's kind of like what I'm wondering about is what keep talking about, this progression aspect of saying, was it always that you felt that it was incorrect, that the aspect that this is just a model and it doesn't really explain anything explicitly? Or was this something that you came to a conclusion of based on your growth and your life experiences?
It's just a factual statement. We don't live on a model.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last statement.
It's just a fact. We don't live on a model. That's just a fact. So it's not like I've had to have some drawn-out process to come to that conclusion. It's just a fact.
No, what I'm wondering about is, when did you come to that realization? Or did you always have that realization? Was that saying that's how I feel?
I see.
That we're not on a model. This is not real.
Correct. I mean, the realization in terms of the heliocentric model was kind of when I asked somebody to show it me, and they were unable to do so. So even though it is a reification fallacy to assert we live on a model, we don't. The heliocentric model, no one ever actually shows it to me. As much as I've asked for it multiple occasions, no one ever actually shows it.
Okay, so what you're saying is you just always felt that way, not so much the fact that you had to come to some sort of point of view where things were just explained and you couldn't validate it or confirm it. You just said you always felt that way.
Hello? No, I didn't feel that way. It's just a factual statement. It seems that I say something, you ignore it, and then put a load of words in my mouth, which is irritating now. So no, I do not feel this way. It is a fact. We do not live on a model. The heliocentric globe Earth way of seeing the world is just a model, and we don't live on that. That is a fact, not the way I feel. Please don't now go on about how I feel about this. That's not how I feel. It's a fact.
That's a very interesting statement, because I would say most people would, portray their aspects of beliefs and ideas based on somewhat of a feeling or the way they feel and look at things. And you're finding that's offensive because you don't want to have someone sit there and say, hey, you feel that way. You just want to say, hey,
I don't care.
These are the facts.
It's irritating and boring. I don't care. I don't care about your feelings. I don't care about my feelings in this regard. We're talking about facts and reality, physics. Not the abstract and the descriptions and the maths. This is very matter of fact. So, matter of fact, we don't live on a model. That's it. No feelings involved, but I know a lot of people who have religious beliefs want to go on about their feelings and their schooling and what they've learned and how important it is to them. So I don't care. I know what the world is, and I know what it's not, and I know what philosophy is and what it's not, and I know that the heliocentric model is merely a philosophy that a lot of people think they live on. We don't live on a model. That's a fact.
Okay. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I have to admit this was extremely interesting. I didn't expect to actually have this perspective from your point of view, and you kind of clarified, the way you're looking at things and how I was somewhat, misunderstanding, the way you look at stuff. And again, I apologize if I was somewhat, giving an impression that I felt that things were a certain way because of the way you felt or the way you, look at things in a certain, statement-wise that was from your perspective had no correlation, because you're trying to say that I'm looking at the facts. This is what I perceive, or not say perceive, this is what I believe the facts are. And you have no contradictions into these statements that I'm making, and because of it, there cannot be no concreteness in the way you look at the things that I'm explaining and such. And I'm hoping I'm explaining that as fairly as possible. If not, again, I apologize. But again, I do appreciate you spending some time talking about your beliefs and how you came about with respect to following this topic. And I'll leave it at that for the most part. I don't really have anything else to say.
Thank me for offering my beliefs. I haven't offered you any. I don't get it.
Again, if I'm giving you an impression that I'm saying that your beliefs, yada 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 yada, I apologize. It's just my phrasing and my statements, in the back of my mind as I'm thinking. Those are the ways that I'm thinking of it. And again, I'm not trying to make a statement that is trying to portray certain aspects of something that you don't want to have portrayed from your point of view. And if I'm doing that again, that's not what I need to do.
But what I would just, if you have got a few more minutes, I mean, I pointed out that you have a belief, though. You started off this by saying that you don't have religious beliefs. You're not a religious person, but you do. You have a religious belief that you're on a spinning water ball flying through a vacuum. So, if I may, there's a few points that I, would like to cover with you, if that's okay with you, in terms of why that's not the case. I mean, I haven't got to cover any of those really, but obviously, if you're in a rush to get off, I don't mind.
If you want to still talk about the topic, that's fine.
Sure. I can rattle my way through what I call the top 3 things that destroy the Earth being a sphere. So the Earth being a sphere is asserted by way of this begging the question fallacy, which is called a proof of nothing Earth curve calculator that has geometry and is based on an R value. And if the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, then every distance to horizon can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. That would be the geometric horizon. And we've got these images that show that the horizon, this claim to be physical obstruction called Earth curve, is way beyond the distance and parameters and constraints of this physical geometry laid down in the maths. Now, as a result, we are told by the people, at least on my show Flat Earth Debate, that we don't have a geometric physical sphere edge horizon. The thing can't be seen, which leaves the model of a sphere Earth in complete tatters, because if you can't see the geometric horizon to measure it, you can't acquire an R value to assert physical geometry, leaving the idea of physical geometry in complete tatters. We call this argument the black swan. It's our number one debunking of the globe Earth, begging the question fallacy that is to assume an R value and then reify it into existence at the point you see the world converge, the horizon, a non-physical location that people think is the edge of the Earth for boats to go over. It isn't. The horizon's not physical. But we've debunked that with this argument called the black swan. So moving on, the sky, I mentioned a few times, is not a vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum. If the sky was a vacuum, the gas we all enjoy breathing would fill the availability of space. And irony of irony, they call that area space. Outer space, a vacuum. Which it definitely isn't, because we'd have no gas to breathe. There's a natural law called the second law of thermodynamics, which would imply that the gas would want to fill the availability of volume it has to fill. It will expand in all directions to fill the space. And if space was a space, the gas would fill it, and we'd all be dead. We're not. Therefore, the sky is definitely not 10 to the minus 17 vacuum, as is asserted. Last but by no means least, it's asserted that we have a 15 degree in our turn of the Earth underneath anything that leaves the Earth. It's asserted by things like snipers, and it's called the Coriolis effect. That's its most familiar name. It asserts that things that leave a turning Earth will, from the ground at least, be experienceable with a deflection at 15 degrees an hour. Unfortunately, that would imply that if you took off on a helicopter, you'd be able to wait for the country west of you to come to you as the Earth turned underneath. Also, a drone, you'd launch it off the equator and it would fly away at 1,000 miles an hour as you turned underneath it. Obviously, these things don't happen even though they're asserted to. So we don't have Earth turn, we don't have a sky vacuum, and we don't have physical geometry as is reified by a mathematical model called the heliocentric sphere Earth model by way of a begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator. We don't live on a sphere. The Earth is obviously and observably flat.
Okay. Thanks for that input. I've heard those arguments before, so I understand where they came from. I appreciate the fact that you want to make those statements, just to point out the aspects of your facts that you're basing your beliefs. If I say beliefs, I apologize. To me, it's almost tripping that I say that statement just out of speaking in general. But I appreciate that you feel that those are things that are concrete and that they have points of validity that you feel are aspects of why things are the way they are, and that other people actually have to evaluate those things just to come to their come to their ways of understanding things to work, and that you feel that those topics and those statements you made are ways for people to go through the process of evaluation.
Absolutely. I've gone through them in a very short summaristic, is that even a word? In a summary. But yeah, absolutely. Those are all arguments that annihilate the assertion that you're on a model that's been reified through math.
Okay. All right. Again, I don't have anything else to say in that, and again, I do want to thank you for coming on and talking about it. Like I said, I was really interested in finding out the progression, how you got to the aspects of this idea, and it sounds like from what you're saying that this is something you just I want to say believe, but I know that's a term you don't like, but it's just something that you felt was the way things are, and there was no really need to not explain them, because that's just the way things are from the aspects of the way you look at this topic.
Sure. Now I get it. We get it on the flat Earth debate all the time. Those of you that come to my show and say, I've got a belief, in actuality it's projection. When people find out that they've got a fundamentalist religious belief in a spinning water ball flying through a vacuum, they often want to ask me about my beliefs. It's a way of deflecting, but it's actually projection. It's amusing though. It's been very good. Thank you for interviewing me, Peter. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, no, like you said multiple times that you don't follow religion, that religion is not part of the way you look at things, and you state it multiple times. So this is not a belief for you, because you don't want people to think that this is something that you just feel is the way things are, as much as you've evaluated what you believe are the observations that I'm assuming you come from the facts based on those observations, and that this is a conclusion you come to because of the information that you retrieve. And like I said, this is interesting, because I would have never thought that this is a progression of a flat Earth follower, that I thought it would be very different. So this actually opened my eyes quite a bit.
Yeah, we pummel our opponents based on scientific validity and physical and natural world and things of that nature, which you got a taste of. I hope it was perceived as it was meant to be intended, which was tongue in cheek.
No, I wasn't taking it as a offensive kind of aspect.
Good.
Like I said, I was here to listen to you talk, not to really dictate or state anything that was from my perspective. I really want to know why things are from your perspective, and not basically but like I said, this was not a debate. I wasn't going to sit there and say you're wrong, you're right, this is the way things are. I just wanted to understand how you came about following this particular explanation of the Earth in general.
Sure. Total lack of any evidence whatsoever for there being a spinning water ball beneath my feet, or a sky vacuum above my head, or spinning Earth turning underneath an inertial reference frame at 15 degrees an hour. None of those things happen, and all you're left with as a result of that is the Earth being obviously and observably flat. Okay.
I can leave it at that.
Cool.
If you're okay, we can end the chat there.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, Peter. Thank you very much. You're
very welcome. I may come on your site there and maybe talk to you in a more one-to-one with respect to these aspects of validation processes. That I'm going to assume that your channel is more focused on that kind of aspect. My channel, I don't want it to focus on trying to say this is the way things are. I just wanted to say why do you think the way you think, or why do you believe the way you believe? And again, I apologize for that. Just the word I use.
Okay.
And just to see how someone came or got to where they got to. And I'm happy because I think I have a clear understanding of how you got to where you got.
I doubt that, but yes, maybe some introspection would be my advice. Where did you get to where you got to, believing that you're on a spinning water ball flying through a vacuum? I'll tell you, reification of philosophy.
Yeah. Again, I don't really have any explicit debut to that. I'm just saying that's the way I evolved, and so I came to that point in life just because the fact is that's the way things went for me.
I understand. For most people, to be perfectly honest, and I've been a little bit brutal, hopefully with a jokey tongue-in-cheek, aside to it, you've got to get a little bit of a taste of what a flat earther who actually understands what science is going to talk like, because you're probably more familiar with your average fundamentalist flat earther from what you've told me, and that's fine. More power to them. It's just not me. We just pull apart the heliocentric nonsense based on its total lack of science, its illogical nature, and the fact that the world is actually obviously and observably flat.
Okay, right. Okay, I'll leave it there, and I'll say bye.
Thank you again, Peter. Pleasure.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
And a massive thank you to all of you who tuned in on this premiering stream, for hopefully liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!